The exponential growth of the digital economy, from megatrends such as AI to the ubiquity of the devices that we use and wear, all require new systems and infrastructure. The circular economy is a primary solution to us being able to meet this digital demand, unlock competitive advantage, and secure supply chains. Welcome to the Circular Economy Show. I'm Danielle Holly, the executive lead for North America at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. In my role, I see tremendous momentum building among businesses in North America towards a circular economy. A few weeks ago on this podcast, I spoke with Pippa in anticipation of Climate Week New York, with some level of uncertainty around what it might look like this year, given all that has changed in the world over the past 12 months. I, along with many colleagues in the circular economy space, wondered if the energy would be different at all. And it was different. It was better. There were many smaller, more substantive discussions around how to bring circular economy forward, including collaborative actions being taken, not just high-level musings around the concept. We want to bring you into that room a bit, that energy, that action. So over the next couple of episodes, I'm sharing conversations from an event that we hosted at Climate Week New York. In today's episode, we'll hear from a panel exploring how technology in the circular economy can unlock economic and competitive advantage. I was joined by three longtime leaders in the space: Jen Huffstetler, the Chief Sustainability Officer at HP, Jim Sullivan, Head of Product Management at SAP, and Vrushali Gaud, Global Director of Strategy and Operations for Net Zero Water and Circularity at Google. We discussed why the key is to move circularity from bolt-on fixes to a bolt-in strategy. Now let's get started. Let's tackle the small topic of AI first. So, Vrushali, Google has made significant investment in AI, and we know that AI and circularity is a very complex issue, right? The energy needs that it requires to power, but also the opportunity that it presents. So, give us a peek into how Google is thinking about AI and the intersection of circularity.
Google is constantly thinking about AI. That's what I can put out there. Every single thing we do, it's embedded in. And I think I say that, but it is true. We've embraced AI in as many of our own operations as our products, and so it becomes dual-fold. I'll take the first one, in which I started off with, in terms of the growth. Right, AI brings with it a significant amount of demand for electricity infrastructure, and so that's definitely one prime area that we focus on. But the second is, how do we use AI for products and driving some of the benefits. And when you look at LCAs, it tells you the hotspots in your material. And you can drive that to figure out, where can you better use material? Where can you extend the life of materials? Where can you replace? And a great example of this is our Pixel phones. But if you forget, Google also makes Pixel phones. Our phones have almost 30 to 40% recycled content. And that's across, I think, aluminum is 100% recycled. The whole list of items that go into it, different materials that go into it. And that's phenomenal when you think about a consumer product, the amount of infrastructure required to think through the life cycle of a design and then getting that much recycled content into it. So that's one part of it. The other products for us are things like, we have something called RecycleNet. So on your maps, you can see and go and see where you can recycle, and the recycle drop-offs on your, near your community. So that's one of embedding it into our existing products. And the third thing that we have is something called a moonshot. We have a Google X, which is looking at these out there startups, looking at things you can do for the frontiers of innovation.
I can piggyback a little bit on AI and this intersectionality. I think we're all seeing the growth and the expansion of the data centers, right? That's where these large language models are living and continuing to grow. And something we've been talking about for well over a decade is edge AI. And that moment is fast becoming more of a reality. Part of HP is delivering AI PCs, and where you're even able to bring that compute onto the device. That's just one example of an edge device. The World Economic Forum has indicated that you can use up to 60% less energy. You don't have to travel through the network, the data center, to do some of that computation. And so you'll see more of that expanding in those use cases over time. We have some other ways we're using AI in our product design. And for circularity, when I think about our packaging, As you're trying to, and HP's got everything from headsets, like, small in your ear headsets, all the way up to industrial printing presses for the consumer products, goods that you know and love today. So really, our products are everywhere in between, and trying to figure out how to build sustainable packaging for those heavier products is a real engineering challenge. And so part of my team has R&D. They're using AI and simulations and modeling to help get those heavier products that are harder to bring circular materials into, so that they still meet the same quality and standards in the shipping.
And at scale, I imagine, right?
Of course, at scale. Yep.
So Jim, in the prep for this session, you used a phrase that I really love, which is bolt in versus bolt on. And it's this concept of how do we build into our systems, into our decision making, into our leadership, into the ways of working for our companies, circular economy principles, sustainability principles, and you've been quite an architect of that at SAP. So I'd be curious, how has that worked for you? What's the journey? What would you share with folks that are in the room that are earlier on that journey?
Yeah, I think it's important to think about this in the bigger picture. So I'm going to maybe wrap up a couple of conversations at Climate Week with what we've learned, but I think 4 key trends I want to highlight in terms of thinking through how to build in rather than bolt on sustainability or CE or whatever we're talking about. And one of them is resilience. And whether we're talking about climate or talking about other topics, and whether it's in vogue or out of vogue at the moment, resilience is a boardroom topic that remains relevant through multiple boards, through all of the conversations we're having. So some data from Germany, I think it's 18% of companies are, in the data space are running into supply chain disruptions or material shortages or things that are disrupting their business. So looking at it through a resilience lens in circularity makes a huge difference, and it's relevant in boardrooms, it's relevant conversation. The second point is, how do you really tie it to finance and business case? It's great to talk about it at the corporate level, but where the rubber meets the road is exactly these examples we're talking about on stage. Packaging for this product. How do I sell this thing in this country? It's at the market unit level. It's at the line of business level. How do we tie sustainability data, circular economy data into the market unit level in order to really create that bottoms up and that strong business case for doing what we're doing? Third point, AI, I told you I'd get to it. This is a huge technology trend. I would love to hear from the other panelists on stage, but I've been through a lot of hype cycles. I have the gray hair for them. This one's for real. It's changing the way we do business. It's changing the way we work in an everyday basis. And I have a provocative message for the room. If you are not in your IT office asking for $1 million in budget to go do cool AI projects for sustainability, you're missing the boat a little bit. This is the time things are getting funded. There's a window to go and jump in and use this for good for these types of projects. Go grab that window. So I think a lot of important points. I'm going to wrap with the fourth one, and why we're here on stage is collaboration. We can have all the technology, and I think all of us on stage probably do have some really cool things here, but without people talking, without suppliers and buyers having the right incentives in place in order to do this, it's really not just a technology problem, it's a change management and a conversation problem. So how do we embed this into the systems that people are using in their day-to-day decision-making to really drive the topic forward?
So you went through a couple of different opportunities and pathways that we should all be going down within companies, within our organizations. Have you, as someone who has moved, right, in a lot of those different pathways, what are the challenges that are coming up? Like, what are the blockers? If it's so intuitive, what's stopping us?
I think it's a couple of things. I think it's data, and would love to hear some other thoughts on this. But systems, when we designed this for original data, we weren't thinking of things like recyclability or recycled content or some of these other things. So as we look to move to built-in rather than bolt-on, how are we tracking the right things in the right systems as decisions are being made kind of on a day-to-day basis? I think that's one big one is data availability. And we can move, average data is not good enough for these purposes. Somebody else's supply chain or an average supply chain is not enough to make a decision. You should go after real data. This is difficult. This takes incentives between buyers and sellers. So we'll wait for some of the incentives with that panel. But how do you get to business, relevant data or decision relevant data that you can make directionally correct decisions on these? And that's where really technology can jump in and help with AI and filling in some data gaps and these types of things. But I think it's a data challenge at the end of the day. And I think technology could help, but business collaboration and collaboration between LOBs within industry is pretty important as well.
And companies that are really good with data. So Jen, I would love to hear, shifting gears a bit, HP has a really interesting circular model in HP Renew Solutions. Share a little bit about the origin of that business, how it's going, if there were challenges in pulling that up and how it's running now.
Yeah, thank you so much. We'll never be done with AI,
I know,
at least
right?
not for the
It's
next
a
10 or
false
15 years, and then it'll be embedded everywhere. But yeah, so our Renew Solutions is an entire portfolio of products and services that are actually built to address things that we saw as both needs for future regulations coming up to meet customer requests and business challenges that our customers were having. Because as I looked at pivoting our sustainable impact strategy, we really are now on this new strategy as an HP, driving the future of work. My role is to make sure we're doing it sustainably. And the number one pillar, you have to start with your customer, right? How are you enabling your customers' sustainability? And that's really where this HP Renew Solutions portfolio was born, and the concepts in there. To give you some of the elements of it, obviously you can envision our home and office PCs and printers are often delivered in a transactional model. So one of the first elements is just enabling and delivering those different products to our many different customer bases in an as-a-service model. And for those of you that are already in that, you know that you then get to manage that asset life as, the owner of the asset title. You can repurpose it to the next customer if one contract ends. So that's one of the elements in the HP Renew Solutions. And it's a really important one. And it's, when I think about metrics that I am looking for the business to help achieve our long-term circularity goals and sustainability goals and our net zero ambitions, I need the business to be shifting to this services model at an accelerated rate. That is going to help all of us. It'll help our top line, our bottom line, and our ambitions in reducing materials and the usage throughout. The other areas are around actually refurbishing products ourselves. So we actually have Renew devices. We also have realized, even just with some of the regulations that are out there, the way we were doing this, you can't ship the PCs from one country, refurbish them in another, and send them back. So there's actually regulatory inhibitors to the circular economy right now that I would look forward to working on together. Again, to me, that's collective action through partners like EMF. So how are we overcoming that? We have tapped into our vast partner network that helps deliver over 80% of our revenue for the company already. And we have given them a certified refurbished program where they have clear guidance on how to meet our expectations. And we provide a warranty of 1 year. So it's taking something that, depending on your industry, there are already resellers doing this today with our hardware, and we were losing out on maintaining our brand reputation, right? And I also run our product compliance organization. So when somebody resells a Second Life product and they use a non-HP adapter and they encounter issues, I get it on the back end as well. So we're motivated as a company to make sure that everybody's experience with HP is a good one, whether it's in the first life, in the second life, or beyond.
Yeah, well, and I have so many questions. We maybe pick this up at the cocktail hour as well, but also imagine there's a bit of a customer behavior dimension that this starts to change for HP, but also more broadly. Vrushali, would love to touch on CircularNet, which I believe you had mentioned in our prep call as another really cool circular business model.
You mentioned data and you mentioned resilience. I think both are two very important words. Data is at the heart of everything we do, and good data is worth its weight in gold. And I think CircularNet is a good example of you understand the circularity of products, how do you use it effectively, and you can sort of open source that information to get more and more collaborators.
Which is such a cool model. You talked about partnering with Microsoft and Meta, and tech companies are not known for their collaboration. What does that look like in terms of figuring out who needs to be at the table and how to get past the competitive focus, particularly of the tech industry, but in general, I think that's applicable.
Yeah, I'm actually good at we are competitors, but I've seen phenomenal working relationships with Meta, Apple, Microsoft, the whole realm of them, because to some extent, we're all facing similar issues and similar challenges, and you can compete on some of the outer pieces of it, cost and margin and performance, but the foundational part, we all need more material. We all need good, reliable material. We need good information to make decisions. We need our infrastructure to perform so we can help our consumer base and our customer base. So to that extent, we are very aligned. And I think, especially in sustainability, there's a great spirit of collaboration. I think that's there within this community, but especially within the tech hyperscalers, because we face similar challenges and have the same ambitions. And so the LCA project, I think, came up from there. It came up from our supply chain teams. You're working with the same end suppliers. It's TSMC, Samsung. It's in regions where the grids are very dirty, the data information and tracking can be difficult. And so we figured out that each one going our own different way. We did, to some extent. That's good, because you start getting an understanding of it. But then when do you combine forces and make sure that you're not spending time trying to refine that information, but then making the use cases and the improvements that you want to. A lot more will come on this. We'll have a paper being published on that and an outpost, so you'll get a little bit more, but that was a piece of that.
That's great, yeah. And it's certainly what we've seen in critical minerals, right? There's a level to which increasing the supply really lifts all ships, right? And so thinking about how can we aggregate demand to some degree so that we are incentivizing the infrastructure and the full value chain.
I can say this, I think it's a responsibility for hyperscalers like us who have the bandwidth, who have the power, who have the muscle, who have the outreach and global organizations to do our bit. And we take that responsibility seriously as to, not every company can go in and install information sets. Not every company can go and purchase data. Not every company can pay the premium for certain first of its kind tests, pilots, right? So the companies like us who have that, I think it's important to use that privilege and do it in the right way.
That's excellent. So we have just a couple minutes left, and our last question was something that you would impart on the audience, an action they would take, which now feels a little silly because you've already given us so much of that. But what is a parting thought you would leave the many different sectors and industries represented here with on technology and circular economy? Jim, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think I've already hit on a number of action items for the audience. Yeah. But let me leave you with two. One is get involved in AI. This is a window. This is an opportunity to really accelerate what you're trying to do within the companies. So get engaged, figure out who within your company is leading some of these initiatives, who has budget for this, and get engaged. And the second piece is really tie it to a hard business case, is put the numbers behind it, look at why you're doing things. I think some great examples on stage for that, but it gets into details, but it's really needed to build this into the companies, is making sure that it makes sense at the product level, at the material level, at the in-region sales level with your customers. And that's how these things get really sticky and continue to grow. So those two things.
Thank you. Jen?
Sure. I will double down on the collective action, and I would encourage all of you, whether it's somebody in your industry that you met this week or somebody that is in a different industry, we all are trying to solve the same common challenges, whether it's in product stewardship, how do we deploy AI to help make our own teams more efficient. Lots of examples of people in the room and across. And then what I've also taken away this week is we have common challenges. So find one or two people that you can try to partner with, just like Google is here, as in this LCA motion, who's having that same challenge, and can we then partner with to drive forward progress together.
Okay, I can build on that. The collective action is a good one, and I'll just use, I just mentioned recycle near me is an option we have on Google Maps. Now, if everybody uses it, then we get the signal that this is important, and I think those signals are really important. It's a small product. It's not Google's bread and butter, but think about all of the things that are out there. Getting that signal back from consumers is very important for then us to go and invest in things like that. I'm sure the same for HP. So yes, actual action, I think, is important. And the second one, which I think is like word of the year this year, is pragmatism. There's a lot of good things we want to do. There's a lot of activity and a lot of scale that we want to pursue. But we also run the risk of diluting ourselves, spreading ourselves too thin, and not being in it for the long run. And so for me, it's being very pragmatic and finding those 2 or 3 pieces to really focus on, solve, and then move.
Coming out of that conversation with Jen from HP, Jim from SAP, and Vrushali from Google, I'm left with 2 clear, actionable challenges for every circular economy advocate listening. First, is circularity embedded in the revenue conversation in your company? We heard that the real transition happens when you integrate circularity data directly into your core financial and operational systems. You know how to practically use that data, and you know when you have enough data to take a new or different action. If your circular initiative isn't part of that core business conversation, it just won't scale. Second, how can you balance competitive edge with collaborative opportunities? We're seeing new types of unlikely partnerships take hold. These partnerships allow businesses to find where they can leverage solutions across the market and where they should focus on their unique competitive value proposition. When businesses are working together, it allows them to identify those systemic barriers and pragmatic solutions. Find out more by scrolling back a few episodes to listen to the mini-series Pippa hosted on circular business models, or explore the links in the show notes. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Circular Economy Show. Join me next week when I'll be sharing another session from our Climate Week event, exploring how circular design meets customer demands and the lessons a rotisserie chicken holds for the circular economy. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. See you next time.